Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Welcome, everybody, to Realizations Podcast. My name is Andrea Gordon, and I'm your host. And today I'm really excited. I'm here with Rebecca. And Rebecca, I'm going to mess up your last name. Can you
Knaster. Knaster with a K. Silent.
Okay. That's why I asked you to pronounce it. So Rebecca Knaster is with me today, and she's in New York City. She serves the whole borough of Manhattan. She has a tendency to love the East Side, but she goes everywhere and will even go other boroughs if need be. She has been a realtor for 28 years. And one of the reasons why I do this show, as you guys all know at this point, is that I am wanting to understand real estate everywhere. I'm wanting to educate the American public about what real estate is, how we do it, the vendors we come in contact with, why things are the way that they are, because I think that the lawsuits that we've seen recently are basically a result of people not understanding what real estate is, how it's practiced, how it's one of the professions in this country. And so I have people like Rebecca on who are known professionals to talk to us a little bit about their life, their work, and why it matters. So hello, welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Hello.
So you are a veteran of 28 years in New York City, which is a feat in and of itself. In New York, they practice real estate very, very differently than they do where I am in Berkeley, California. First off, in New York, correct me if I'm wrong here, you have no MLS.
No, we don't. New York City does not have an MLS.
Right. And so you basically have to find out about listings through osmosis. Is that correct?
That's not correct. What happened about, I don't know, I've lost track, 17 years ago, something called StreetEasy came out.
Right.
StreetEasy was a website for real estate. And at the time, because there was no MLS, everybody thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. You didn't have to go to Brown Harris, you didn't have to go to Corcoran, you didn't have to go to Halsted. I'm mentioning the names of the brokerages that were around then. Or
Right.
You just went straight to StreetEasy. So we thought it was the greatest thing in the world, but we don't feel that way anymore.
Right. And tell me why.
Why? Because StreetEasy, what they've done is they've taken over the power. Here's an example. They have something called Premier Agent, which means that, and I'm basically a listing agent. So what happens is when you go on my listing, you see my pretty picture and my name, but you see nothing else because on the right-hand side, it says, click if you'd like more information.
Yes, exactly.
And I give you an agent that knows nothing about the building, that's not highly experienced, but is looking to grab the commission.
Right. And this is caused by, generally speaking, when you have these things, a realtor has purchased advertising on that site. And so they get featured there. And we've been having a big fight about that here where I am too. Because, for example—
That's different. I'd have to interrupt. That's different. You know, what this does is they pay, in other words, it used to be you pay for a zip code. Now, I've never done this because I'm a listing agent. I don't love working with buyers because, as you'll know, if you have an exclusive and a signed contract, you know that eventually you're going to sell it. Working with a buyer, you never know where you're going to wind up. That said, used to be that when you went to StreetEasy, you paid for a zip code and you got listings in a zip code. Now, what it is that you have to prove to them that you are, let's say you're a high-end broker and you want to get them to put you on someone else's exclusive. You then pay and this, I'm not sure exactly the exact amount, but based on the price of the apartment, they will then decide what the percentages you have to pay them off of your commission.
Oh yeah.
That's different. So it's different than being a premier agent. But so if you're on $3 million listings, you may have to give them 40% of your commission.
No, I know, I know. There are a lot of parasitical companies where I am too,
Really?
where if you sign up for whatever it is, if you close escrow, you'll have to pay them 25%, 30%, 35%, sometimes 40%. And then it gets really wacky when you get into relocation companies because they're there kind of basically grabbing this client and they're providing other services as well. And they will come in and they will ask for like, 60%.
Really? That's not that high in New York. I really don't work with reload companies. And in New York,
I
usually
don't either at this
you're
point.
attached to a reload company. It's not the same thing as StreetEasy. So
Mhm.
that's been in my opinion, that's a listing agent's nemesis, StreetEasy.
Well, there are a lot of these companies, and all of them are our nemesis, I guess you would say,
Nemesis,
because
nemesis.
because ordinarily, if you've been working in a particular area for a very long time, people are going to organically find you by looking online. They just are. But what happens is these companies dart in and grab the lead and then regurgitate it back to you,
Seller,
which
yeah.
which seems just wrong to me, but that's a whole other thing.
You
And
won't you won't get an argument from me about it, that's for sure.
yeah, and then the other part of all of this is that a lot of these companies that real estate agents are paying tons of money to get these leads are actually working very carefully to essentially eliminate us. They would love to have an a la carte menu where they pay a showing agent by the hour, they pay a listing agent by tasks that are completed. They think that they can turn real estate into like Carvana, where you push a button and buy a Toyota, which of course is not ever going to happen because every building is different, every set of regulations are different, the way real estate is practiced state by state is different. There are so many ways in which this will not work, and yet these companies persist in attempting to do this to us. So let's get back to you and how you started in real estate. How did you get into real estate?
Well, it's a funny thing. When I first got out of college, I was in the fashion business for many years. From
Mm-hmm.
there, I segued into selling advertising space. And
Mm-hmm.
then I decided that I realized that my personality just wasn't suited to be in the corporate world and take orders all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I had my first Cocker Spaniel at that point. I had adopted him, and
Aw.
I used to cut his hair myself. And people would stop me and they'd say, "My God, who cuts your dog's hair?" And I'd say, "I do." So being very practical, I said, listen, I'm doing this and I don't know what I'm doing. Let me maybe open up a grooming shop. You
Ah.
know, so what I did is I went to grooming school. And then, I realized that I really wasn't good working with labs and big dogs. I'm tiny. So then I had a friend who was also a realtor and she said, "Why don't you sell real estate?" And I said to her, "Sell real estate? I don't know anybody who wants to buy anything, and I don't know anybody who has any money. So I went to real estate school." And then I sort of back and forth real estate, grooming, and then I finally went to real estate. And I had my first deal probably in a month, which is
Mhm. Yeah.
so that's how I got into it, purely by accident. And I've stayed there. I've been there ever since. Listen, Robert Refkin, who's the head of Compass, said that 2024 was the worst year in real estate in 29 years.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
was.
It was a terrible year. Yeah. I
No.
love Robert. He's awesome. We're both with the same company. Both of us are with Compass.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I'm the top producing agent in the Inner East Bay for Compass. So
Nice.
yeah, so and I know Robert's mom, Ruth. I know a
Oh,
lot of
Ruth,
people.
yeah.
Yeah, and I've had Leonard Steinberg on the show. So, and Robert's actually been on the show. His episode is coming right up in the next week and a half. So,
I'll tell you interesting, just to segue for a second. I have been working for another company. Listen, I've been with all the big ones. I started at LBK, which everybody started their event at some point. And then I went to Element. From Element, I went to Corcoran. And then I left Corcoran and I went to William Ravis, which is an unknown entity in Manhattan. He has one office and he's in the Northeast. He's in Connecticut, Westchester, Massachusetts. He's now gone down to Naples. He's moved around. But I went there. And what I learned is that it doesn't matter who you work for as long as they remember your name.
right, right, right,
So
right.
then Compass came calling, and I thought about it. And Bill Ravis made me a very, very attractive offer to stay, but I decided I wanted to go. And
Yeah,
what I can say about Compass, and I'm sure you'll agree, is that the culture at Compass is superb. I don't think anybody can beat the culture at Compass, and that starts with Robert.
Yeah, Robert is an incredible man. And for those of you who've never seen him, you should actually look him up online.
What a hard worker.
Robert Refkin, Reffkin. When I joined Compass, and I know that he does this for everybody, he called me.
Yeah, exactly.
He has like 30,000 agents or 40,000 agents
Yeah.
working for him. And he called me personally and wanted to talk to me. And he's always been kind and considerate and also just on it. One time, the Compass has been sort of plagued by people not liking our success. But the reality is that they pick the top
Good.
2% of agents in the country to be at Compass, which is why we're really, really good. And on top of that, we have all these incredible, amazing tech tools that are available to us largely because of Robert and Robert deciding to make this company the most tech savvy company in real estate. And I was reading an Inman article, and it was like midnight here in California, and somebody said something very unflattering about him, which wasn't true. And I wrote this impassioned paragraph about how they knew nothing and how the Saudi Arabians were not the owners of the company or something. I mean, there were all these horrible rumors flying around. Robert, by the way, is half black and half Jewish, and his mother is from Israel. I mean, he is not somebody who is courting Arab nations to support him. And any tech company that has used venture capital has money from different sorts of venture capital places that are involved with the corporations, like Apple. If you use an Apple computer, guess what? There's Saudi Arabian money in your Apple computer somewhere. In any case, so I wrote this whole impassioned thing about it. It was 3 o'clock in New York, and Robert responded
Oh boy.
immediately to my personal email thanking
Really.
me.
Unbelievable.
So
He sets
yeah,
the bar. I have to tell you, he sets the bar. I said to him,
yeah,
nobody works as hard as you do. Nobody.
yeah, it's really true. It's really true. He flies all over the country. He's incredibly supportive of all of us. It is really an amazing culture at our company. And this is not an infomercial for Compass or something, but
Yes.
in a way it is because
But I
it's
wasn't aware that I didn't look. I didn't even know that you worked for Compass. That's the funny
yeah,
thing. I
yeah.
didn't look. That's
Yeah,
so funny.
Robert was actually raised in Berkeley, California, and he called me up. And when he called me up that day, he said, "I want you because you're the quintessential Berkeley agent, and we need you." And I was like, "Okay." I mean, it was kind of amazing. And then, I was at a very small boutique company, and I was having all kinds of problems because I was going after very big listings, and my company was great, but they would print everything on recycled paper, so it didn't quite look great, or everything was like all about being essentially woke. But I would be in competition with people that were coming with like suede bound books with vellum and what have you.
Oh,
And I would go buy those things. I kept on buying stuff because I wanted to compete on that level with them, and my company just didn't have it. And the marketing at our company is exquisite. It's kind of amazing. So yes, I'm a big Compass fan. I love Compass. And I love all my Compass compatriots in New York, and
ah,
I'm meeting all over the country from this podcast. Um, people
interesting.
people have talked to me about what it's like to work in all the different areas. Like, for example, in New York, do you write the contract or does an attorney?
Well, I was going to bring that up too. In California, you have no attorneys. In New York, once you have an accepted offer, you put out a deal sheet. It's out of your hands because, but it's a different animal in New York City. You basically sell houses.
Yes,
We sell co-ops and condos.
right. I
So,
do sell condos every once in a while, but yes.
and I basically sell co-ops, and young brokers really don't know how to handle a co-op. You really have to understand the building, the board, what the requirements are. You can't just throw them to the dogs there. So
Right.
so what happens is the attorney comes in, he then reviews the financials, reviews the minutes, looks at the proprietary lease, the offering plan to make sure there's nothing, out of the ordinary. That's
Hmm.
not in a case with a house that doesn't happen.
Other things
Well, they're
happen, but
different.
yes, absolutely. And
You have
there's
an
some,
inspect. You also pay for an. You also have an inspection. You pay for an inspector because I own a house in the Hamptons, so I
mhm.
know how it works.
Hmm. Yeah, what we do in our area is we work very hard to put the whole disclosure packet together.
Yeah.
I do that. We get inspections. We have to there are different sorts of ordinances in every city that you work in. I personally work in about 6 cities. So all of them have different requirements around the sewer laterals, around gas shutoff valves, around sidewalks, around all kinds of things like that. So you have to know all of those ordinances and have to have all of that in the packet up front so that you can really encourage a non-contingent offer. When you're working with a condo, many of them have like enormous HOA packets that you
Yeah.
have to provide to the other side. You have to make sure everybody understands what they're getting into, that they
You should be
understand.
paid more money, I have to tell you, for you should get a higher commission since there's no attorney and you're doing the attorney's job. I'm
I
serious.
know. I thank you. I love that. Can you say that to the whole?
Really, we don't, an attorney, an inexpensive attorney is $3,500 in Manhattan.
Right.
That's inexpensive.
Right, right. Yeah, and they're the same amount here. But yeah, we only get attorneys involved if there's a problem. And if there's a problem, it's happened after the close of escrow, generally speaking.
Yeah.
And in the southern half of my state, escrow officers handle most of the paperwork. So in our part of the state, we handle 100% of the paperwork. Southern California, escrow officers handle the paperwork from the contract being signed on. And in so many states across the nation, everybody gets their paperwork handled by attorneys once it gets to the point where there's a contract involved. So yeah, it's actually fascinating the way real estate is different everywhere. And I actually think I think it's part of the problem that we've been having with these lawsuits with the DOJ and NAR. I think that if there were a way to standardize things a little bit more, I think it would be super helpful. Personally, I'm opposed to the way in which the decision around commissions and things came down. In our area now, and I don't know if you've been doing this for a while, everyone has to sign a buyer broker agreement if they're working with.
Yeah, it's becoming, let me tell you something. It's the new kid on the block for us. And here's an example. Somebody was referred to me, and because the other broker, I don't know why, but she was insecure about it. I do a lot of direct deals. I just do, and I'm good at it, and I know how to handle it, so it's different. And this way I don't have some incompetent broker on the other end, sorry to say. So she asked me so what happened? She called an attorney called me, and I said, fine. And I knew the buyer because he had come to one of my listings.
Mhm.
So I sent him a buyer broker agreement. It's the first time I'd ever done one of them. So I sent him the wrong one. I sent him a general one. And then he sent it back to me. And then my manager said to me, you need to send him, I forget what it's called, for a specific apartment.
Right,
So I
right.
sent him that one. Well, I got to tell you something. He completely destroyed the agreement, wrote up his own, missing. And I said to him, what doesn't apply? He said to me, I'm not going to pay if the seller's not paying the commission. I said, it says so in the deal sheet that the seller's paying the commission. What is the issue? Let's just cross it out of the agreement. Let's cross that out of the agreement. But he insisted on writing up his own agreement, which was not correct.
Right. Was he an attorney?
No, he wasn't an attorney. He was some kind of a professor in Tampa, Florida. So the deal died. Not my
Hmm.
fault.
Right,
So
right.
that's becoming a hard pill to swallow when you go out with buyers and they have to sign this immediately.
We need to, in our area, you can't even show a house without having a buyer broker agreement signed. And if somebody, and there's something to it. To me, it would have been much cleaner if they had just said the sellers have to pay the listing agent and the buyers have to pay the buyer's agent. That would have been a clean thing. Now what they've done is they've created this nebulous, weird gray area where the buyer, what is going to happen if the seller suddenly says they're not willing to pay a commission?
Well, wait a minute, hold on. Don't you have an exclusive agreement? And in the exclusive agreement, there is a new paragraph added, who pays the commissions? You don't have that?
We have an agreement that says that the seller was willing to consider
No, no,
paying
no,
a
no, no,
commission.
no, 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 no. We don't have that. No.
That the seller is willing to consider paying a commission,
No,
and then
no, no,
depending on the offer that they get, they will
no.
tell you whether they're willing to pay the other side or not.
That's terrible.
It's awful because what it does is it puts the agents in the middle between the buyer and the seller and sets up this weird thing where if the buyer is short on money, they may not get the house because they can't afford to pay you. And I mean, it's just, it's crazy making. I have kicked back more money in the last 6 months than I've ever
Get the
kicked
deal
back.
done. Well,
Yeah,
no, you
just
know
to
what?
get
No,
the deal
no,
done. And it's just wrong. It's
no,
really,
no,
really wrong.
no. I will tell you, in New York, it says this is the commission. This is what the seller is willing to pay the listing agent. This is what the seller is willing to pay the buyer's agent. And that's it. And I will tell you that there are very few sellers that say, I'm not paying. Because what you do is you turn around and say, well, that's fine. If you don't want to pay, if you don't want to pay, that's okay. Because there are 50 other apartments similar to yours where the seller is paying the buyer's broker's commission. And I tell people the same thing, like this is the way it works, 6%. If it's a direct deal, sometimes I'll say 5%. But I also say to them, look, you know what? Why? I say, this is like selling cars. Why would a broker want to bring a customer to your apartment if you're paying them a lower commission when they can take them to a similar apartment that's paying a higher commission?
And see, we're not even allowed to talk about commission. We're not even allowed to talk about commission. If we talk about commission, we are violating antitrust laws.
Is that always been the case?
No, no. And by the way, while
Maybe that's the case for me. I don't know.
while all of this is
Yeah.
while all of this is going on, the original listing agreement and the purchase contract always has had the verbiage in it that commissions are paid from the proceeds of the sale. It
Yeah,
does
from
not
the escrow.
It does not specify whether that is from the seller or from the buyer. It just says they're paid from the proceeds of the sale. So the whole lawsuit thing that happened was based on nothing, based on absolutely nothing. It was never ever in the contract to begin with. So at least ours. I don't know whether it was in some other state, but
What's
in ours,
it have to do with the fact that the selling agent was the dual agent? I don't
um,
remember. I thought it was.
I don't remember either what the genesis of that was,
Yeah.
but I do
Okay.
know that the lobbying at the Department of Justice was from some of the larger corporations that are trying to put realtors out of business. So it's all political. It's all political. All
But
100%.
I don't know, but I'm sure it's happened in your neck of the woods as well. And I know Berkeley very well, and I know I'm a big California person. So
Cool.
um a number of discount brokerage firms have attempted to make inroads in New York City.
Hmm.
They haven't gone anywhere because there's an
Well,
old saying, you get what you pay for.
well, right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that here, because it is so, pardon me, woke, um, everybody's willing to consider anything, if that makes any sense. Just like in New York. I'll give you an example. Whenever I'm in New York, if you make a lunch date with somebody and it's a week out, you go meet that person for lunch a week out, right? Whereas in California, you make a lunch date with somebody a week out, you call the night before to make sure that it's still happening.
No, 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 no. The same. Listen. Oh, no, no. In New York, you always confirm the day before.
Oh,
No,
you do, because I
I don't
remember
just show up and pray they're going to be there. No, that doesn't happen.
back when I lived there, it was people were just people of their word when I was in New York. Whereas in
It,
California, everything's kind of slidey.
it has nothing to do with someone's word, but making a lunch date a week out is a long time these days.
Yeah, yeah.
Anything can happen.
I think it has to do with the pace of everything. I mean, we're all getting thrown for a loop with every day's news lately. And
Ah,
I think that things change on a dime pretty much because of all the information age, all of that. I'm from the same time as you. When I first
yeah.
started out in real estate, there were no navigation systems. You drove around with the Thomas Guide on your lap. You had a cell phone that was the size of a shoe. You had
People
no
didn't even have cell phones yet. They go the pay phone. What are you talking about? Answer phone. I know people didn't have pay phone. Wait a minute, but the best part is that in those days, if you had a cell phone, and I had a cell phone because I have a house in the Hamptons, you know where that is, and I
Right.
used to be frightened. God forbid, what if I'm driving out and I get stuck and I have, so I gotta. But then it was $30 for 15 minutes. I never
Right.
forgot that. So somebody would say, "Can I borrow your phone?" You'd say, "No."
Yeah, yeah. There was no MLS when I started.
It was the New York Times. You sat down and you looked at the FISBOs every Monday morning.
Or
New
yes, or
York
who
Times
died, or
controlled
who
everything.
died.
Well, I know this woman. She pays $400, I think $400 a year to get the list of people that passed away from the city.
Yeah.
I said to someone, does anybody really do something like this? That's not the world I live in.
Well, yeah, there are people that are just sitting like spiders waiting for stuff like that. Absolutely.
Ambulance chasers.
Well, I'm glad that you're not like that.
No, 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 no.
Very funny and very charming, by the way. I appreciate you coming on the show today. My if people wanted to find you, how could they get a hold of you?
Okay, there's a couple of ways they go on the Compass website. I was doing social media for a while. I was spent 9 months. I had someone I may start up again, but so they could find me on social media. But all I'd have is my friends saying, "Oh, you look terrific. I've never seen you looking that good. Oh, I like your hair. What a nice sweater you have." Say to myself, what am I doing this for?
Right.
So I don't have my own personal website, but all someone has to do is Google my name and they find me. I
Okay.
don't, I mean, maybe I probably live in an old-fashioned world.
Hmm.
I had this person doing Instagram for me. I've never been on TikTok in my life. And probably, I find that these young TikTokers, they want to work with another TikToker. But
Hmm.
wouldn't you agree? A lot of times,
Yeah, I mean there are parts of Oakland or Berkeley that I don't serve particularly because my average price point, it's going to sound low to you, but here it's high, is 1,520,000.
no, it's not low. It's not low at all.
And so
No,
I don't tend to go handle houses that are, in a lower price point in areas that I don't feel comfortable in. But those are the areas where the young people who go to Burning Man, who are into all of that kind of stuff go, and they deserve to get an agent who has the same cultural references that they do.
good way of putting it.
And so I think that that's a good thing. I do think that when you've been in the business as long as you and I have, we have a certain wisdom around what we're doing that will enable people to, have better, stronger negotiations if it comes to it. And also, which I guess doesn't matter in your case because the attorney's going to be doing that. But I feel like we do have a wisdom around what we're doing that makes us valuable to younger people that are purchasing, if they're purchasing in our price point. And I think that for the most part, they respect that and are grateful for it, honestly.
Look, I think at this point that, our business, we have a strong referral business, and if we don't, we're in big trouble.
Hmm. Hmm.
But the other thing is, and I mean, God bless all of these young brokers that start. I mean, I don't know about you, but I could have never started at a tender age of 20 something, gone into real estate without having any kind of an income. I never checked to see what the rate of success or the rate of, I can't think of another word of failure. That's not the word I want to use, of exiting. There is these young brokers. They will
There's
think the money grows.
huge attrition rate. Last year,
Let me,
2020, 2024
yeah, let me
was
hear.
was one of the worst years
Brutal,
in real
brutal.
estate. And 71% of realtors across the country did not make one sale.
Okay, so that's it. So what I'm saying, so the thing is that I these brokers come into this business and they see all these, they see all these stories, or they read about these stories about all these very highly successful brokers in the 1% category, and they think they're going to do it too. I mean, I hate to say this, they think the money grows on trees, and it doesn't. We work damn hard for our money.
Yeah, no, and people don't get that. I think that that's true all the way around. I went to the High School for the Performing Arts in New York,
Oh, how
and
nice.
at the very first assembly that we all had, our principal stood up on stage and said, "Less than 2% of you will ever be gainfully employed in the performing arts."
Were you in music? Did you go to music and art, or you went to another one?
I went to performing arts before it became part of performing arts.
Really? Where was
I was,
that?
it was on, I was there, oh gosh, 70 to 72. And
Really? Okay, so I know people that went to music and art. I mean, that you really, I knew very talented people that went there. I'm not saying they made it, but they went there.
yeah, everybody was incredibly talented. I
Yeah.
was in school with Freddie Prinz and
Oh,
with Ellen, what's her name? She has that gravelly voice. I'm spacing.
not Ellen Burstyn.
No, not Ellen Burstyn, the other
Sorry.
Ellen, the other Ellen. I can't remember her name. That's terrible.
Well,
Um,
yeah.
but in any case, I was there with a really amazing group of people who were very, very talented. And I actually left in 72 and went to college. So I skipped a couple of grades and I went to the New School for Social Research in the
Sure.
freshman year program. And then I matriculated out to UC Santa Barbara and I've been Californian pretty much ever since.
But you know, they have this impression that it's just, you know, the money's the commissions are gonna grow on trees.
Well, and that's the other part of it. I think that if people really study, you know, there are kids now that are getting a degree in real estate, and
I know, I go to NYU.
those kids are aware of how hard it is. But there were a lot of people who thought, oh, I can just make my own hours and I can, you know, drive around in a fancy car because they're watching all these reality TV shows. And
$1 million listing.
Oh, I know, horrible.
What a joke.
And so they don't get what is really, really involved in making a sale, in getting to this point. You know, I will say this, the people that stick with it and work hard and have consistency and time block and set themselves up for success, if they stick in it for like 10 or 11 years, they're going to start getting that repeat and referral business that will sustain them. And, you know, I sell a house a week. So
good for you.
Thank you. And the thing is that you do that with just acting with integrity in the world and working very, very, very hard. And so in summary around real estate, you get, just like in New York, you get what you pay for. In real estate, you get what you work hard for. So there you are. Anyway, you're just lovely. I am so excited to know you, and I hope that we keep our conversation going. You seem like a great person to know in New York. And
well, I hope if you come and visit, I hope we can get together.
I would love that. I would love to have coffee with you. You're just delightful. And
thank you.
And thank you for taking your time with me today. I think it's actually been an eye-opener for people because they never hear this kind of shop talk about real estate, and I think it's valuable for them to hear it. Anyway, take good care. Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon signing off from Realizations. See you next time.